Everyone knows Rome, the gladiators, the Colosseums, the emperors Julius Caesar, Augustus, Constantine. Rome is literally taught in every single school across America and Europe. But here's something that's going to bother you. While Rome was falling apart in 476 AD, while Europe was entering the Dark Ages, while the whole Western world was collapsing, there was another empire on the other side of the world that was just getting started. An empire that would rule for 400 years. An empire that had 50,000 war elephants. An empire that built universities so powerful that monks from China and Tibet walked for months just to study there. And almost nobody in the West has ever heard of it. Today, we fix that. This is the story of the Pala Empire, the forgotten Buddhist empire of Bengal that was, by many measures, more powerful than Rome. Now before you say, how can anything be more powerful than Rome? Let me give you some numbers. The Roman Empire at its absolute peak covered about 5 million square kilometers population. Around 65 to 75 million people. It lasted roughly 500 years. Impressive, right? Now the Pala Empire. The Pala Empire controlled Bengal, Bihar, and at its peak, most of northern India population. Roughly 40 to 50 million people. And it lasted over 400 years. So yes, Rome was bigger in land. But here's where it gets interesting. Rome fell because it couldn't hold itself together. Corruption, civil wars, invasions. The Western Roman Empire collapsed in just 476 AD. The Pala Empire, it survived invasions, internal conflicts, and still managed to rebuild itself, not once but twice. That's not weakness. That's resilience. And resilience in history is often more impressive than size. So how did this empire even start? The year is 750 AD. Bengal is in complete chaos. No king. No law, warlords fighting everywhere, the weak are being crushed by the powerful. Historians literally called this period Matsyaneya, which translates to the law of the fish. The big fish eats the small fish. Sound familiar? Now here's the part that blew my mind. The local chiefs of Bengal got together, and they held an election. They voted for a king. In 750, the man they chose was a warrior named Gopala, not from a royal family, not born into power, just the most trusted man in the room. And with that one democratic decision, one of the greatest empires Asia had ever seen was born. Think about that for a second. The United States didn't have its first democratic election until 1788. Bengal did it over 1,000 years earlier. Gopala's son was Dharmapala, and if Gopala started the fire, Dharmapala turned it into an inferno. Dharmapala marched his armies across the entire northern Indian subcontinent and captured Kannauj, the most powerful and prestigious city in India at the time. Capturing Kannauj in ancient India was like capturing Rome itself. He called a grand royal court, and kings from across India came to bow before him. He took the title, Maharaja, King of Kings. Now compare that to Rome. Roman emperors called themselves Augustus, meaning the Great One. Dharmapala called himself King of Kings. But here's what makes Dharmapala truly remarkable. He wasn't just a conqueror. He was a builder. He founded the legendary Vikramashila University, a place so respected across Asia that scholars from China, Tibet, and Nepal traveled for months on foot just to study there. Rome had the Colosseum, a place where people died for entertainment. The Pala Empire had Vikramashila, a place where people lived to gain knowledge. You tell me which one was more civilized. After Dharmapala came his son Dharmapala, and Dharmapala took everything his father built and made it bigger. Here's a fact that an Arab merchant named Suleymanik wrote down when he visited India. The Pala king traveled with an army of 50,000 war elephants, 50,000 elephants. The entire Roman army at its peak was around 300,000 to 500,000 soldiers. But soldiers versus war elephants, that's not even a fair fight. Julius Caesar famously encountered war elephants in North Africa, and his soldiers were terrified. The Pala army had 50,000 of them. Dharmapala expanded the empire into Assam, Odisha, and parts of central India. And here's something that even most Indians don't know. It was during Dharmapala's reign that Pala missionaries traveled to Tibet and established Buddhism there. Yes, The reason Tibet is a Buddhist nation today goes back directly to the Pala Empire of Bengal. Now every great empire has its dark period. After Dharmapala, weak kings took over. The empire started shrinking. Enemies took back territory. For about 150 years, the Palas were fatting. But then, around 988 AD, a king named Mahipala I took the throne. And he did something extraordinary. He rebuilt the entire empire from scratch. He recaptured lost territories. He dug lakes and built towns for ordinary people. He made the empire strong again. The people of Bengal loved him so much that even 1,000 years later, folk songs in Bengal still talk about Mahipala. Now think about that. How many Roman emperors do ordinary people still sing songs about 1,000 years later? That's the difference between power and love. Rome had power. Mahipala had both. The Pala Empire finally ended around 1174 AD, 400 years after it began. And what did they leave behind? First, they saved Buddhism. When Buddhism was dying across India, the Palas kept it alive and spread it to Tibet, Nepal, and Southeast Asia. Today, over 500 million people practice Buddhism. The Palas are a huge reason why. Second, they built the greatest universities of their time. Vikramashila and Nalanda were the Harvard and Oxford of the ancient world, except located in Bengal. Third, Pala art. The Pala School of Art created sculptures so beautiful that today they sit in museums across the world. In London, New York, Paris, you may have walked past Pala art in a museum and never known it. And fourth, 400 years of peace. In a world of constant war and chaos, the Palas gave Bengal 4 centuries of stability, trade, and prosperity. Rome gave the world roads and laws. The Palas gave the world knowledge, art, and religion. Both matter, but only one of them gets taught in school. So the next time someone says, Rome was the greatest empire of the ancient world, ask them one question. Have you ever heard of the Pala Empire? Because while Rome was burning, Bengal was building. And maybe it's time the world knew that story. If this video made you think differently about history, hit subscribe. Because on this channel, we don't just tell you what they taught in school. We tell you what they forgot to teach. I'm Jiten and this is Jiten Scrolls. See you in the next one.